Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. It's Monday morning. It's a new week. I'm your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Josh McCafferty. There's been a fair amount that's happened since we were last on air on Friday morning. So we've got a lot to talk about today. But first of all, Josh, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
Yeah, very good. Enjoyable weekend. Obviously, still waiting for games back on Saturdays and Sundays at the minute. But I think that Celtic have got a game next Saturday, so I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah. Again, hello to everyone coming in on the live chat. Nice to see all your comments. Another week, less than a month away from the season, Josh. It's getting busy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the off season is definitely over now, which is good. Obviously, Celtic had the game Friday night, playing Tuesday, playing Saturday, so they're coming thick and fast at the minute. And as much as it's pre-season games, I'd rather be watching Celtic in pre-season than not watching them at all. So, fully back, and there's a lot of transfer news as well, which everyone loves.
Yeah, so we're going to get into all the transfer stuff. I think just first of all, we'll just to keep our house in check. Hayato Inamura, of course, arrived at Celtic since the Celtic Way was last on Friday. He arrives on a 4-year deal from Albirex Niigata. He's excited to be here. I think the chat from Rodgers was that he's one for the future. He's going to be assessed this summer. He's not coming in to be a first team competitor straight away, Josh. Interesting comments. It's kind of like I'm thinking Celtic are now going down this kind of dual strategy of making sure that the first team squad is well stocked, but also making these more speculative purchases that might pay off over time. And as such, we should set our expectations accordingly. We might not even see much of this Inamura guy. This just seems to be something that Celtic might now do in balance with the first team signings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they actually keep it going after this, but it is a low risk punt. Obviously, at £250,000, that's buttons to the club. 23 years old, so he's, in terms of, if you look at it in European football terms, he's really only 18, 19 because he's just came through the university system. And something must have stood out in terms of his. Obviously, I've not watched much of him, or in terms of the numbers or the data and the analytics. Something must have stood out for a player who's playing in a team who's battling relegation in the J League to spend £250,000 on him and bring him halfway across the world to Celtic. So I'm intrigued to see how the signing pans out. He probably, like you say, will go out on loan, and whether he gets a year in Scotland to bulk up to get that experience of coming up against these big, physical, tall strikers and playing backs to the wall, defending it with some of the teams in the league. And then he comes back to Celtic and looks to challenge for a place next season, or another year out on loan. We'll just have to wait and see. But it could be one that pays off in the long run, or it could be one that ends up like Marianne Shved and just doesn't work out at all. But whatever happens, it's only £250,000 down the drain, and in modern football terms, that's buttons.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of chatter around this deal. There's some cynicism going around. We've had some of it on the channel. Kevin McKenna that wasn't too impressed with going for this defender. We'll have analysis up on CelticWay.co.uk about this. I spoke to a J-League expert. Now, Inamura obviously has a very different profile to all the players that have come to Celtic from Japan. Even Kobayashi was not had established himself further in the J League than Inamura has, and then the rest of them had either won leagues or won silverware or been featured for the national team. Inamura is very different in the sense that he's not even played for the youth Japan team. He's come through the university system, which is why he's got limited experience. Now, my take on it is like Celtic are just trying something out here. That's genuinely my take on it. Now, if you look at the J League and the direction of the J League, there's increasing concern over in Japan regarding their university system. Before, European clubs would wait for a player to fully establish themselves in the J League, playing at a senior level for 1 or 2 years before making a move. Increasingly now, we're seeing some European clubs, NEC in Holland and Brøndby have just signed a young Japanese forward, are signing players direct from the university system and getting in earlier on these talents, which is a natural progression of shopping in Japan, I think. So I think there'll be more teams doing this, signing players earlier without much of a track record. Because of the quirk of the Japanese university system, the reality is they don't have much senior football to their name. So then it becomes, as I say, more speculative. So I guess we're just going to have to see how Inamura pans out. And you summed it up well there, Josh. And then Rodgers saying, after the Queen's Park game that Inamura could even go back out on loan, as he said, this season, which I think might be a good option for him. If it's not in Scotland, then somewhere in the UK, I think would be good for him to kind of get used to the pace of British football.
Yeah, because you need to learn that, especially coming from the J League. It's a totally different style of football, and the fact he's not even got much senior football experience to his name, he really needs to go to a club. If he's going to challenge for a place at Celtic next summer, he really needs to go to a club in the forthcoming season where he's going to be playing week in, week out, getting used to the physical aspect of the game here and learning his trade. So that would be ideal if Celtic can find a club, whether it be in the Scottish Premiership, maybe the lower leagues in England, if he could go somewhere and get that experience, because he definitely needs it. And that's my take.
And look, I think this type of deal is fine, as I said, with balance, and it's also fine if it's communicated in the right way. I think Rodgers and the club are now being pretty clear what the path is for Inamura, so it takes expectations or pressure off his shoulders to come in and deliver. And now we know, after the other news that's broken over the weekend, that Celtic are looking for another defender. Before we come on to that, Mike Noroski has confirmed his loan exit to Hanover's German second tier for the season, so he'll get an opportunity to play regularly. Brendan Rodgers basically saying he's not played as much as he'd liked over the last couple of seasons, which is of no surprise to anyone, Josh. And Noroski away, and then Lagabiela is on the brink of confirming his move to Portugal to play for SC Braga. He's away to complete his medical early this week, ahead of a £2 million or so move. So 2 defenders going out the door over the weekend, kind of making space for someone else coming in.
Yeah, I think it's 2 moves that were probably needed in terms of both players. They didn't really have a long-term future at the club. I think combined they made 28 appearances for Celtic. They both signed for the club 2 years ago, so 2 signings that certainly haven't worked out at all. The manager doesn't really fancy either of them, let's be honest. Lagabiela, I think Celtic signed him for $3 million roughly 2 years ago. They sell him for 2, so a $1 million loss for a guy who made 10 appearances, and he'll always have that goal against Feyenoord in the Champions League that secured Celtic's first home win in the competition in 10 years or something stupid like that. And Noroski, is clearly the manager didn't fancy him either. He was at Celtic for the whole of his 2 years and played 18 times. That really tells you all you need to know about what Brendan Rodgers thought about Noroski. Depending on how he does at Hanover, he could probably go away permanently next summer as well. So certainly clearing the decks, like you say, for someone to come in, and the 2 moves, to be honest, aren't surprising. But it's good that you get them out the door now at the beginning of July, rather than these guys hanging around until the end of August deadline day, because you don't want that.
Now, I don't like to throw shade around, Josh, but I noticed some outlets carrying Brendan Rodgers' comments on the defensive situation and perhaps framing him in a way that was not quite accurate, missing out one of the key lines. So this is what Brendan Rodgers had to say after the Queen's Park game on the defensive situation. He said, "We've got Austin Trusty, we've got Liam Scales. I think we'll definitely look to bring in another one. But I would always look out for our own first. Hopefully, if Dane can stay fit and be available, then he's one that can be in and around it." Now, some people took that to mean that Brendan Rodgers is going to go with Dane Murray and not sign another player, but he's quite clear there. I think we'll definitely look to bring in another one. So we know Celtic are on the hunt for another defender. And one of the names in the mix, and we broke this report on the Celtic Way last night, is that Dutch central defender Justin De Haas, who plays for Famalicão in Portugal, Portuguese top flight, has top flight experience in Portugal and in Croatia. 25 years old, 6'4", £3 million move. This fits more the kind of profile that we might look for in a first team signing, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. I think on Rodgers' comments, there's going to be a centre half coming in alongside Inamura as well. I think what he was just talking about is Dane Murray is can he challenge for a place in the first team this season? I think that's all he was really saying about like Dane, not that he's going to be thrust in to a Champions League playoff, which isn't until the middle to end of August anyway, so I would imagine it's over a month, so Celtic will probably sign a central defender before then. And like you say, Justin De Haas could be that guy. He's got the profile that I would expect Celtic to somewhat be looking for. He's not a project signing. He has experience at a top level in Croatia and Portugal, and he's tall as well. I think when you're looking for a central defender at Celtic, you're looking for someone who can play football, play out from the back. In Brendan Rodgers' mind, left-footed, he always speaks about that. Haas fits that profile. You want to be tall and you want to be physical to be able to deal with fixtures like Livingston away, like Kilmarnock away, where we've seen so many guys go, like Austin Trustees of this world, Christopher Julians of this world, and really, really fail that test. So you want someone who can stand up to that too. So I think it's an interesting move. It's not a relatively expensive move. It's one that could actually be very shrewd in a way, given his experience. He came through in the Netherlands. I believe he was taking free kicks for PSV Eindhoven's youth team at one point, and he captained them. So he has a lot of interesting aspects to his game that I would actually be intrigued to see how he got on at Celtic. And it's quite clear that if Celtic are looking for a left-sided central defender like Justin De Haas, it tells you all you really need to know about what Brendan Rodgers thinks of either Liam Scales or Austin Trusty. My bets would be on it being the latter, Austin Trusty, given how much Rodgers likes Scales.
Yeah, and I think the thing with De Haas as well, he fits the physical profile that we think Brendan Rodgers favours, physically dominant, but also able to play. And that is going to be important for that left-sided centre-back. Now, Brendan Rodgers said this on multiple occasions. He chopped and changed in that position. He was like, I think there's perhaps less made of it than perhaps wanted. I think if a manager's chopping and changing a central defender, I think there's questions to be asked there. I think because the season panned out so successfully for Celtic, the question marks kind of get brushed away almost.
Yeah.
But the fact that Brendan Rodgers hadn't found a defensive solution that he was really, really comfortable with there, it's no surprise that they're moving for a defender of some sort. If it's not De Haas, then it looks like it will be someone else. Now, we don't know how far the De Haas deal is down. Yeah, I think it's just at this stage Celtic have been scouting on him, have been impressed, and it's kind of that on the radar type language that you get in the transfer window. There's no suggestion that Celtic have made a bid or anything to date at this point. He's just one of the names in the mix. I think what it does tell us is that Celtic are looking for that left-sided centre-back, and I think that might chill a few people out or calm a few grumbles of people who were looking at Inamura and thinking, is this all we're getting in defence now? That doesn't seem to be the case. The way it's transpired over the last few days, not to repeat ourselves, but basically Inamura is not for the first team, it's for the future, and Celtic will be looking to sign another defender, which is good news, I think. It's good news. Interesting, just on the Dane Murray thing, Josh, I know we had the Queen's Park game. Mm-hmm. I thought it was fairly notable to an extent that Dane Murray seems ahead of Stephen Welsh now in the pecking order. Is that how it seems to you now? Like, Dane Murray is now, he's more of a star in Brendan Rodgers' eyes than Stephen Welsh at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't surprise me. I think the thing with Dane Murray is always been he has the potential, he has the ability. It's just been these injuries that have held back through his young to date. And he is a couple of years younger than Stephen Welsh, and he is taller, he is more physical, like you say. And I think on the ball, there's an argument to say he's better. The only thing that separates really Dane Murray and Stephen Welsh is the first team experience. Stephen Welsh has been in and around the Celtic first team since the COVID year. So that's the only thing that is the difference between them and now Dane Murray. Yeah, like you say, he started the game and Welsh didn't come on till half time. Is that correct? Yeah, because Austin Trusty started alongside Dane Murray. So yeah, that tells you really all you need to know. I'd be interested to see how it goes with Dane Murray throughout the season, because I think he is one who could maybe take that role that Stephen Welsh had at the beginning of last season as maybe one of the fourth choice central defenders. And Rodgers clearly likes him. Remember, he played one of the cup games at the middle of last season, played the full 90 minutes. Rodgers earmarked him as getting an opportunity. He was going to play against Rangers at Celtic Park in the 3-2 game if he didn't pick up an injury in the days leading up to the game. So Noroski had to play. So I think he's one who Rodgers rates. And I hope he does continue to be in the first team, because I'm always calling for it. The academy players I like to see him brought up, and Dane Murray's certainly one. Another player actually just on the Queen's Park game I was actually impressed with. The two in the first half were Mitchell Frame and Adam Montgomery on the left hand side. Linked up pretty well. Obviously Mitchell Frame got the assist for the goal. In terms of the way the team was actually lined up when Celtic posted it, it looked as if it was going to be Frame at left back and Montgomery in the left wing, but it was actually the other way about. It's a chance actually for Adam Montgomery, perhaps. Obviously, I think everyone wants Celtic to sign another left back, but could he maybe do an Anthony Ralston like he did under Ange Postecoglou a couple of years ago and stake that claim for the backup right back spot and do the same at left back? Kieran Tierney, I don't know.
Pete McGee asking, how much football have people in here seen Dane Murray play to make a judgment? I don't even know what he looks like. I've seen a fair amount of Dane Murray, to be fair, Pete. Like not a huge amount, but I've seen a decent amount to get a sense of what kind of player he is. I was actually pleased to see him there in for the start of pre-season, because I know you had injury issues in the second half of last season, and I know these things can drag on a little bit, so I was actually happy to see him involved, and I guess we'll see how the summer pans out there. Again, there's no massive expectations, I think, on Dane Murray. It's one of those things that could be a bonus if he does progress in the way that we all want him to after all his issues. Just to round off this little defender segment, Cameron Carter-Vickers underwent surgery over the summer, as we know. It was clean-up surgery, as was suspected. Brendan Rodgers confirming that over the weekend and saying that Cameron Carter-Vickers is going to be back in training probably this week. He's not going to be involved in the Cork thing. He's not going to travel to Ireland. But I think he's going to be back in Lennoxtown training sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so that's a big boost. Obviously, there were reports circulating a couple of weeks ago or last week that he could have been missing the beginning of the season or Champions League qualifiers and all this carry on. But now it seems like he'll be back fit for probably start Flag Day, which is good to see. And he'll be one of several first team kind of stars who aren't really travelling to Cork. Rodgers confirmed after the game that it's kind of going to be a similar team to Friday that goes to play that game in Ireland tomorrow night.
Just to round off the defender further, any chat on a backup left back, not seen any links and starting to worry. We're just going to fill up on centre backs and have Scales as backup on the left. I think backup left back is a priority for Celtic this summer. Tam, I don't think you need to worry too much. It's just one of those things that's rumbling on. I'm not sure what calibre of player that will be, what kind of profile of player that will be. I would have a sense. I would be surprised if it's someone in their late 20s. Let me put it that way. I think it might be someone that might come in and be to develop over time, but does have some senior experience under their belt.
Yeah, and I think maybe just because the Greg Taylor thing kind of dragged on a wee bit, that's maybe why there's not been as many links to back up left backs, because they were still waiting on a decision from him. And obviously you've still got someone like Adam Montgomery at the club who for pre-season and probably the first few league games would be fine if the worst came to the worst. But yeah, I'm sure, like you say, the profile of the left back remains to be seen, but I expect it to be someone who's a bit younger who can learn from Kieran Tierney and eventually take his place in the team, or it could be a 1 year loan signing, a stopgap. We don't really know yet, but I don't think it'll be someone who's a similar profile to Tierney in terms of age, put it that way.
Okay, we've squared away the defence. We're sorted there. Now let's move on to the Nicholas Kuhn situation and the search for his replacement. Now, Rodgers confirming over the weekend that Nicholas Kuhn is on his way to Como. We believe that Kuhn's has signed a 4-year, or has agreed to sign a 4-year deal with the Italian club and will move for a fee of an initial £16.5 million plus add-ons, whatever's negotiated between the two clubs. Rodgers said over the weekend, we virtually agree between the club and Como, so it looks at this point that he'll be on his way, but we just have to wait for confirmation. I think it's very clear the model of Celtic he's come in, and in the 18 months he's done absolutely fantastic for us. He was aware of interest towards the end of that last season, and that has followed through. Other teams have joined in that interest over the summer, and that's why a lot of the young players come. It's a wonderful, brilliant club to come and develop and improve. And you can see within a short period of time, 18 months, he's now getting the move that he wants. He's done brilliant for us. If he does end up going and signing at Como, then it's great business all round. Now, interesting, he was kind of asked about the timing of the deal, that it's early in the summer, if that's a good thing, etc. I think we can all agree it is, but Rodgers' comment's quite interesting on us. He said, the earlier the better, really, because if a player wants to go, then I don't see the point in them hanging about. Really, if you can get the deal done and you get the valuation, what you think is right, then do it, move on, and look to get the replacements in. Another key line there. I think we'll always look to improve the squad. There's money there to bring players in. It's just about getting the right ones. I'm really excited by this season. So, interesting set of comments on that whole situation. Clearly, as many suspected, Nicholas Kuhn kind of angling for a move away from Celtic, and in that scenario, it makes perfect sense to sell him. I think this is the right time to sell him, and Rodgers clearly looking for some of the fee that is recouped for or taken in for Kuhn to be reinvested back in his squad.
Yeah, certainly firing a warning shot to those at the hierarchy of the club that this is what I want. I want a replacement for Kuhn with the money. Maybe not all of the money that's been brought in from him, but yeah, unsurprising that he didn't, or he wanted to leave. I think everyone could see that kind of his performances after the Bayern game. And it's good to get, like Rodgers says, get the move done early in the summer. You don't want it dragging on to deadline day, and if a move doesn't come to fruition, you've got an unhappy Nicholas Kuhn for the first half of the season, and a Nicholas Kuhn who wants away, who, like we've seen, is not great when he wants away when he plays. So yeah, good business all round, like the manager says. I think he's bang on the money. With these comments there, I don't think there's much else you can add to them. In terms of the business side of things, yeah, again, £3.5 million you sign him for, you sell him for well north of 15, which is good business all round, and a nice profit for the club. And like the manager says, it's a good example of the model working, and it's another example of players coming in the door that, look, 18 months from now you could be in Nicholas Kuhn's situation. I think it's a good move for him as well. Como going out there, Serie A, I think they're one of the best up and coming teams in that league. linking up with Alex Valle. He'll be playing under Cesc Fabregas, Living and Como. I think that's a really, really good move for him. Obviously, I think he had the option of RB Leipzig as well with the reports. Obviously, one of the clubs for the Bundesliga. But yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how he does out in Italy. I think it could suit him.
Como are investing a little bit of money into that project, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's decent wages on offer as well for Nicholas Kuhn, which may be a factor. You get the sense, he's made upward trajectory moves. Let's say that, and so fair play to him. I've got no problem with Nicholas Kuhn. I thought he was excellent for a good spell last season. And Natalie McMillan asking, who are we going to get to replace Kuhn? Well, the chat over the weekend, there was one named in the rounds, and he was actually Nicholas Kuhn's replacement at Rapid Vienna, when Kuhn moved to Celtic. Isaac Jansen, a Swedish player. I had a bit of look at his profile. I think he's done all right in Austria over the last 18 months or so. They seem to think he's a similar type of player to Nicholas Kuhn, and Celtic have been linked with him over the weekend as a kind of, again, he's on the radar type thing. But I would imagine in a similar situation to De Haas, that there'll be a number of names in the mix for this position. But again, what it does tell us is that, yes, Celtic are looking for a defender. Yes, Celtic are looking for another winger. I think arguably they need two for me, for my personal taste. But at least they're looking in the market, and it's not just completely dry. Celtic are going to strengthen here.
Yeah, because they need to. As soon as Nicholas Kuhn goes through the door, I'm looking at the options for the wings, and I'm not filled with confidence, to be honest. Yang, Luis Palma, and ageing James Forrest, Daisen Maeda, that's really it. You get one or two injuries there, then you're scunnered. So you really need to get a winger, certainly two, in the door. And the names that have been touted, Yansen, numbers okay. Rapid Vienna, not a particularly standout, but there are other teams, and I always think that's a good sign when there's teams from Europe's top 5 leagues also interested. That tells you the player's doing something right. So it is one that could come. Balakwish is another one that's been named several times as well, but it's clear that they want a winger, and they should really move to get one in, because currently your right wing option is your best is probably James Forrest, and as we all know, I know James Forrest has the ability, but he's certainly getting on a bit in years, and you don't want to be going into that first month of the season, which is so crucial. You've got a good couple of league games, you've got Rangers at Ibrox, you have a Champions League qualifier, you need to get bodies in the door soon. The fee that was touted for Jansen was around 3 million, I think. Don't know if that would be enough, but yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how that one goes. You've also got someone like Marco Tellio coming back into the team as well, who could have an opportunity perhaps over the next couple of pre-season games to do well. But yeah, two wingers certainly should be coming in, I think, this summer.
I'm going to play the Kevin McKenna cynicism role on Marco Tellio. I'm not convinced that of that at all. Listen, things are rumbling on. So Celtic are travelling to Ireland today. They were training over the weekend. They were in. The full squad is back in training. Benjamin Nygren is training. Kieran Tierney is training. The full squad are back. Rio Tati had a few injury issues, but he's expected back this week. Nothing serious there. Good to get all the squad back, but I don't think the team for Cork will be much stronger than the team against Queen's Park. I think that'll be a similar unit, and we'll see a similar type of team take to the field in Ireland, Josh.
Yeah, I think so. In Cork City currently sitting bottom of the Irish top flight, which I wasn't actually aware of until I had a wee nosy last night, so I think it should be a formality, the game tomorrow night, with no disrespect to Cork. I'd expect probably a similar lineup, like you say, to Friday night's match, and maybe instead of it being changed at half time, maybe it gets changed at 60 minutes just to push those guys on to get some extra game time. And I'll be yet again intrigued to see how the guys do. Adam Montgomery will be one I'm looking out for. Dane Murray yet again, and even the young guys coming off the bench. Some of them look decent, some of them look sharp on Friday. And Johnny Kenny as well. I thought Brendan Rodgers' comments on Johnny Kenny over the weekend were actually quite interesting. And obviously he got his goal. Celtic have got Callum Osmond in the building. Clear competition for Kenny, but Kenny answers that with a goal on Friday night, so can he follow that up again tomorrow?
I would like to see Callum Osmond in Cork in some capacity. I know that he wasn't involved on Friday. I mean, Johnny Kenny did well. He took his chance that came his way. I thought, just to touch on Queen's Park briefly, I thought Celtic's control and possession in the match was decent. What kind of pleased me was that after half-time, when it was effectively a B team, that the young players, they kept up that intensity. It wasn't quite as slick or smooth combinations as we saw in the first half. It wasn't a blowaway performance in the first half. It was functional, but in the second half, I just felt that the energy and attitude from the young contingent was good, and I was actually pleased to see that, because Brendan Rodgers reiterated pre-match that this is actually an important period for the young players, because he does make determinations and he does make judgments on these players. That's just the natural way of the world. People say the preseason means little, but for the young players, it's a big opportunity. So some of them need to stake a claim if they want to go on this Portugal training camp trip. I don't think they'll all go, so Rodgers will be selective with who he brings, and they're trying to play their way into contention for that.
Yeah, and I thought a couple of them did actually quite well. It was no surprise kind of to see this when you watch the B team, the style Celtic played in that first half. It was no surprise to kind of see it carried on in the second 45. Samuel Zaguso was very unlucky with his chance that he got one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Should have probably scored that, if I'm being honest, and a wee bit harsh. But yeah, it's a great opportunity pre-season for the young guys to come in, like you said, and even bringing the 16-year-old Daly off the bench. And that's something Rodgers was actually echoing towards in his comments as well, that you see it a lot more often in football, that you want these guys to bring them up into the first team environment straight away. Daly only signed his first professional contract with Celtic during the week, and he's with the first team playing for them on Friday night. So they want to bring these young guys through the ranks, get them that experience early, and that's so crucial for the development as well, being in and around that first team environment. So let's see what other young players can perhaps stand out and catch the eye on Tuesday.
Again, if you're on Rodgers Watch and you're listening to what Rodgers is saying, he name-checked Connor Daly pre-match as a player, a 16-year-old who's come into training and impressed him over the last week or so. So again, just another wee name to watch when Brendan Rodgers says something it's worth keeping an eye on. So Celtic off to Cork the Celtic way, also in Ireland. Tony's on something of a road trip, I think, between Dublin and Cork over these last few days. I think this is a photo of him in County Kildare, meeting one of our subscribers. Just get the name. Sorry, Ian O'Sullivan he met. And Tony's enjoying himself. Tony's speaking to different Celtic supporters organisations. He's also doing some special reporting us on kind of the historic links between Celtic and Ireland, as well as John Keane. John Keane was the man who transferred the £1 million that saved Celtic in 1994. He's passed away now, but Tony's doing some good reporting on his links to Celtic and that whole story, which I don't think's really been told in full before. So Tony's getting on that for us, as well as attending the Cork game. So fair play to Tony. He's enjoying himself, as you can see.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to be alongside Tony on that road trip. That would be a very good laugh. And I'm looking forward to seeing actually the content he comes out with after it, because it looks like some very interesting stuff that's, like you say, not being covered yet. So very good.
Yeah, he was at a Celtic supporters meeting over the weekend, so I think that report's going to be going up on celticway.co.uk tomorrow morning in time for the Cork game. We're going to have a few Irish specials this week, just celebrating the links between Celtic and Ireland, which we like to do from time to time, and the club are taking time to go over there, and it's great for the supporters over in Ireland actually that Celtic are going over, because a lot of them travel to Glasgow every 2 weeks. Some of them travel every week, but a lot of them travel every couple of weeks for the home games. So for Celtic to make the effort to go to Cork, Kevin said on the show last week that Celtic should try to be arranging an Ireland trip every year, almost every summer perhaps. If that's something that the club could do, I think that would be real good. It doesn't need to be big, massive, high-profile trips at the Aviva or anything, or whatever the Aviva's called these days. In Dublin, it could be smaller trips to Cork. It could be to some of the other teams around the league. I think Celtic keeping their hand in Ireland is a good thing for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. And to be fair, they have kind of done that over the past couple of years, at least since Brendan Rodgers has been back at the helm. Obviously, had the mid-season friendly against Sligo last term. You've got Cork this summer. You had Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Aviva in Dublin at Rodgers' first pre-season back. So certainly harnessing those roots, and it's certainly something that the club should be doing. And perhaps maybe next summer yet again they'll be over in Ireland. So
we're a month away. Celtic need a central defender. They need a left back. They need a winger, probably too. They need a striker. A lot of work to be done, Josh. A lot of work to be done. Even though Celtic have done a decent amount of business in the early stages, this month is really when they need to get in gear. Because I think if it drags on into August and Celtic haven't filled some of these priority positions, that's when people start to get a bit antsy. Because the Champions League draws on August 4th. The Champions League games come around quickly in mid-August. We need players in, ready for those qualifiers. Even if they're not established starters, I think just having them as options on the bench and having that depth there could be crucial. It could be the difference between winning that tie and not.
Yeah, and one thing I would say as well is money, I think, will be spent over the course of between now and the end of the transfer window. Because you look at the signings so far, Kieran Tierney free, Benjamin Nigrin less than £2 million. Ross Doohan, free transfer. Hayato Inamura, £250,000. Callum Osmond, a very small development fee to Fulham. So I expect money to be spent on these key positions. Brendan Rodgers will have been given a transfer budget, I assume, at the beginning of the window, and he'll still have the majority, if not all of that, left to spend. So I'll be intrigued to see how it gets spent.
Yeah, I always wonder about transfer kitties or how it's called. I think a general budget is set. I've always got an impression as well that Celtic do take this kind of thing on a case by case basis sometimes, and
yeah,
I'm intrigued by the amount of money that will be spent. Obviously, bringing in that Kuhn fee early, I think is decent, and I think it probably alleviates. Hopefully, anyway, it alleviates some concerns about spending. I don't think Celtic should have any concerns about spending. They've got enough money.
Exactly, and you also got the Frimpong money as well that came in when his move to Liverpool through. So that's another £5 to £6 million, and like you say, there's a lot of money in the bank, and that's even without potential Champions League qualification, which could come at the end of August. So whether Celtic get into the Champions League or not should, in any way, it should not be impacting their summer transfer business one iota, and that would be my final take for today.
I would concur. So everyone, we're going to try and get Tony on the show tomorrow morning live from Ireland just to give a bit of chat ahead of the Cork game. And yeah, we've got the Cork game, we've got full coverage of that, we've got stuff going up on the site today, as I said, we've got some analysis pieces, we'll be looking into De Haas, we'll be looking into all sorts of stuff, we'll be trying to get the transfer latest for you as well, after breaking that De Haas news last night. So we've got all sorts coming up on celticway.co.uk. Josh, you've got stuff on the site and on the Herald and everything. You're busy reporting this week as well.
Yeah, I'll be on a couple of days later in the week, and I didn't actually realise the Cork game was a 6 o'clock kickoff on Tuesday.
That threw me as well.
You're coming in from work and you're thinking, it's 8 o'clock. We've got a couple of hours. No, it's 6 o'clock. So be in quick from work on Tuesday night.
And we'll have different contributors on this week as well. Today, Josh, I think you're maybe coming back on Friday. We've also got Ryan's coming back from a long 2-week break. I think he's got another couple of days left. I think he's seen Kendrick Lamar at Hampden, Josh. That's there you go. So Ryan's on that, and as soon as he recovers from that, he's going to be back in and back on the channel for us talking. We'll have Hamish out, of course, as well. We'll have Kevin at some point as well. So plenty coming up on the Celtic Way. Thanks for joining us live, everyone, today. Thanks for joining us in the comments. Let us know what you want Celtic to do in the transfer market, and of course we'll have a look at that and be chatting lots more about transfers over the coming week, I would imagine. Josh, thanks for joining me this morning, and I hope you have a good week as well, mate. Thanks, everyone. Bye.